Okay, Char, say hi to the people on BookTube. Say hi, sweet girl. Can you sit? Good sit, Shake. Good shake. Oh my goodness, what a very good girl. Good baby. Hello, Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. Welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, so that means it's time for a Friday Reads video, and this past week I finished 2 books, and I'm currently reading 6 books, so let's go. So the first book I finished was Cradle by Vonnegut. I did this as a buddy read with Sam at Paper Not Books. This was the first Vonnegut novel I ever read, and I felt okay about it. So the narrator of this book, whose name I don't think we ever learn incidentally, but the narrator of this book is at the beginning trying to interview people for a book that he is working on about the day that the atomic bomb was dropped. And so he's trying to interview people who were related to this scientist whose work he's on the atom bomb he's particularly interested in. And then this sort of snowballs into a weird thing where he keeps meeting people who are somehow connected to this scientist, and then eventually travels to an imaginary island named San Lorenzo, an island nation named San Lorenzo, to interview one of the children of this late scientist, and then a bunch of other things happen once he gets to the island. So the chapters are very short. Most of them aren't more than a page or 2 in length, so the book has a lot of chapters, even though it's like a slim little, almost novella-length book. It's under 200 pages. And it also has a very episodic feel to it, so most of the chapters are either he meets yet another new person who's somehow connected to this scientist, or he's explaining the tenets of a religion that he follows called Boyneism, I think. That is entirely made of lies, and it tells you that in the book of Boyne, that it's all just lies. So this is sort of, I guess, a satire on religion and how religious books and religious mythology and traditions are constructed. That element was not particularly new to me, but I do think the exploration of religion is interesting. Ultimately, for me, I felt like this book didn't really build to anything significant, and so I was kind of left wondering, what was the point of this? So for that reason, I ended up giving it 3 stars. I also felt like the characters weren't really like fleshed out real people. They were all quirky and weird, which I think I said last week. And in a book, when everyone is quirky and weird, it's the same as no one being quirky and weird, because there's no point of contrast to it. So yeah, I don't know that I'll be super anxious to read another novel by Vonnegut if most of his books are like this. I did find it comical at the beginning, but then as it went on, I started to find it tedious, because I was like, okay, well, are we eventually going to get to something? And it didn't really feel like we ever did. So 3 stars. Enjoyed the buddy read with Sam though, and for a more positive opinion of this book, I encourage you to check out her channel, because she liked it a lot more than I did. So 3 stars. I also finished reading this week Winter Counts by David Heska, Wanbli, Wyden. I listened to this as an audiobook. I thought the audiobook narrator, who I believe is Daryl Dennis, did quite a good job with it. And this tells the story of Virgil Wounded Horse, who is the guardian to his nephew Nathan. And Virgil is kind of like an enforcer on the reservation, aka the res. And basically when people are denied justice because the legal system doesn't care about what happens to Native Americans, they come to Virgil, and he basically like goes and beats people up. So that's his job. So Virgil's nephew Nathan gets involved in some drug related things, and then kind of gets set up for a crime. that he did not commit, and so Virgil's then drawn into trying to figure out who's been bringing drugs to the reservation and who set Nathan up and how he can keep Nathan out of trouble, etc., etc. So I quite liked it overall. I would definitely read something else by David Heska, Wanbli, Wyden. I think this was his first novel. I thought he did a very good job at capturing the setting and the sort of environment of the reservation and what people there are like and why so many people sort of feel hopeless and turn to drugs, alcohol, some other form of self-medication and or suicide. So some of it's quite dark for those reasons, but I did feel like those topics were treated very well. And yeah, and I was mostly entertained by this. It definitely, I think, built tension as it went on, and definitely the last like 2 hours or so of the audiobook I found quite exciting as we sort of race to the conclusion. So yeah, I liked it. It didn't quite reach the compulsively readable threshold that I usually reserve for 4-star books, and so for that reason I gave it 3.75 stars. But I would definitely recommend it, and again, I would, especially if you like thriller or police procedural kind of things, and I would definitely read something else by David Heska, Wanbli, Wyden. So that was everything I finished this week. So in terms of my currently reading, I'm still engaged in 2 buddy reads right now. One is of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities for Victober. I am reading this with Cynthia at Book Whimsy, and we are about halfway through this right now. And I will say, I think it's very difficult in this book to tell when you're in London and when you're in Paris. And I'm just wondering why it was so hard for Charles Dickens, who was literally paid by the word, to put London or Paris at the beginning of the chapter. Would that have been so hard? I don't think so. So I found it very confusing for the first while to figure out, okay, who's in London and who's in Paris. And because it shifts back and forth between the two. And I think now I have a handle on who's in London and who's in Paris. But again, would it have been that hard to just tell me at the beginning of the chapter? So this is going all right. Both Cynthia and I think, are kind of waiting around for the French Revolution to happen, because we're like, okay, we know the French Revolution is going to happen, but like, when is it going to happen? Because we kind of need things to get more exciting in this book, because it's not like nothing has happened, but like not a lot has happened so far. And again, we're both kind of like, okay, let's just get to the French Revolution already. So more on this as I get closer to the end, but we are at about the halfway point. I'm also at the halfway point of Austerlitz by W.G. Sebald, which is a group buddy read between me, Brian at Bookish, Sina at Beating Around the Books, and Mark Nash. I'm quite enjoying this. We're again about the halfway point of this, and I'm finding this quite compelling reading. It has a lot of philosophical meditations, which I quite like in books. So things about the nature of language, the nature of memory, and things like that. So I'm quite enjoying this, and it's an interesting format because it has very few paragraph breaks throughout the entire text, and often it will include pictures throughout the text, which you don't often see with works of fiction. There's another one, some more, etc., etc. But yeah, this is good. I'm enjoying this so far. So more on this when we probably actually finish it at the end of the month. So those are the buddy reads. I'm also still, of course, reading The Essential Rights of Ralph Waldo Emerson. I am currently on page 673 of about, what is this, 840 pages? I think that's right. Yeah, it's 840 pages. So I'm very close. I'm getting closer to the end. I also started a few books this week. I started A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. This was all over BookTube a couple of years ago, and I think it was in the final round of the inaugural BookTube prize, so I think most people don't really need an introduction to this book. So I am 130 something pages into this. So this is going well so far. This was one of the books that Lindsay of Lindsay's Book Life gifted me in our holiday book exchange last year, and we're both trying to finish up all of our book exchange books from last year before we get to the book exchange for this year, which will start at the end of November. So this is about a Muslim family in the United States, and we know at the beginning that the eldest daughter is getting married, and there are 3 siblings. There's her, there's the middle sister, and then there's the brother who's the youngest. And we know that the brother is estranged from the family, and that I think no one has seen or spoken to him for about 3 years, but we don't know why. And so he comes to the wedding, and there's kind of some tension there, and then the book goes back, and so now we're getting a lot of scenes of what they were like at various points in their childhood, and I'm sure eventually we're going to get to why the brother became estranged from the family, I imagine. So that's going well. I also started John Boyne's A Ladder to the Sky, another book that Lindsay gifted me in our holiday book exchange, and this book I believe actually won the inaugural BookTube prize a couple of years ago. So again, I don't really think it needs an introduction, but this tells the story of Maurice Swift, who is an aspiring writer who steals other people's stories, more or less. I'm finding this quite engaging so far. I'm not super far into it. I'm only 34 pages in, but I am finding it quite engaging, and I like the writing style. So that bears well for that book. Oh yeah, and then the last book that I'm currently reading is I started a new audiobook, which is called Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. I think that's the title. By Emily Austen, and y'all, it's really funny. Or at least like it's the kind of humor that I find funny, so I have found this very much compulsively readable, and I literally checked it out as an audiobook yesterday and started listening to it yesterday, and I'm already like slightly over halfway done with it. So I listened to like, I think 3.5 hours or something of it yesterday, so yeah, clearly I like it. But it's about this girl named Gilda who has depression and pretty bad anxiety, and she kind of just like can't really get her life together. It's hard for her to keep a job because of her depression and anxiety. And she receives a flyer that like promises some kind of counseling or therapy or something, and she goes to the address, and it's actually a Catholic church, and then the father of the Catholic church thinks that she's there to apply for a job as a secretary or administrative assistant, basically. And she's too embarrassed to say otherwise, so she says, yes, that's of course what I'm here for. And she interviews for this job and gets it because she's young and knows how to use technology and the internet. And everyone else who works there is older and doesn't know how to do that. And even though she's not Catholic, she's an atheist, and also she's a lesbian. So she's like trying to hide all of these things, and it's just, and she has no idea about how Catholic Mass works or anything like that, and so it's just sort of funny to see her try to pretend to be straight and Catholic, even though she has no idea what she's doing. And in the meantime, there's this guy who she gets set up with. I'm not even going to go into how that happens, but this guy that she gets set up with, who she keeps trying to ignore because, again, she's a lesbian and she's not interested, right? But she has a, like, sort of girlfriend, and so she's trying to not let the sort of girlfriend find out about this guy that she's fake dating so she can keep her job at the Catholic Church. So anyway, I'm clearly very amused by this. So if that at all sounds appealing to you, I would recommend this book because, yeah, I'm finding it quite entertaining, and I'm probably going to finish it up either today or tomorrow. And I like the audiobook narrator, whose name I don't remember. It's also Emily something, but yeah, it's a good audiobook. So that is everything that I either finished this week or I'm currently reading. So if you have thoughts about any of these books, I would love to hear that. Please feel free to let me know that down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whenever you're reading. And until next time, would it kill you to call you mother?